Peter Valley, FBAmastery.com here. In this video, I'm going to give you a buffet, a smorgasbord, a vast array of Amazon condition description notes, specifically for books that you can copy and use in your business. These are tested notes I've used personally myself. And I got to tell you, I've done a complete 180 on this subject. I used to think condition description notes didn't matter. I now believe they matter very, very much. And I got to tell you, the one thing that changed my mind on this is understanding that Amazon customers are not just buying based on price. Price is probably the top thing, but they're also buying based on convenience, aka the buy box. And guess what's third in line? Your condition description, specifically the trust that you can impart. So I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. This does matter. And if you're a skeptic, in a few minutes, you will be a believer. So let's get into it. Here's what we're going to cover in part one. Do condition description notes matter? I will make you a believer very shortly. In part two, we're going to cover a framework. If you don't want to just copy the description notes I'm going to give you a framework so you can write your own. There's only 4 boxes you have to check. 4 things every condition description note should include. I'm going to give you all 4 of those. And then lastly, probably what you came for, I'm just going to give you condition description notes you can copy that I personally use myself. Okay, so does this matter? So here's the thing. As I said, I did a complete 180 on the subject. I used to think it didn't matter at all. And one of the early things that kind of got me realizing how important the condition notes actually are is I was going back and forth with a student of mine. And I was just like troubleshooting his inventory because everything seemed to be going fine. He had, his pricing was fine, his inventory was high demand, but he wasn't getting sales. And it was right in the beginning of textbook season, wasn't getting sales, he was panicking. I reviewed his inventory and everything looked great. So I was very confused. So I decided to try one Hail Mary move. His condition description notes were atrocious. I didn't think they mattered that much. But I said, hey man, I've gone over every possible thing I can think of. Let's just try this one last thing. I said, I want you to put no writing or highlighting at the front of every condition description. I want you to go through all your inventory, edit everything, and put that sentence at the very beginning. His inventory is almost all textbooks. And a lot of textbook buyers, they really care about no writing or highlighting. So I was like, let's just try this. And here is what he texted me 48 hours later. In 48 hours, he did an extra $1,000 in sales. So this is one of the big aha moments for me because I didn't believe they mattered this much. And we can't really say for sure if this was the key variable. There could have been other factors at work here. But regardless, he went from no sales to $1,000 in 2 days based on that one little tweak alone. And as I started to analyze how this could possibly be, I began to learn a lot about the psychology of the Amazon buyer. And that is what is going to shape these condition notes I'm going to give you. It's not just random. It's not just what sounds cool. This is actually driven by an understanding of what causes Amazon buyers to make purchasing decisions. Okay, so there's actually some psychological strategy behind these notes I'm going to give you. Hold on, coffee time. So here's why Amazon customers buy. Okay, there's 3 reasons, 3 things that drive sales. Number 1, price. That's probably the top one. Customers buy based on price. Most Amazon sellers think it starts and ends there, and that's not the case. Number 2 is convenience. That's another word for the buy box. What's right in front of them, what's easiest to check out, what's easiest for them to just click and buy. Number 3 is trust. And trust forms the basis behind everything I'm going to teach you in this video. How can we impart in our potential customer trust so they can trust us to deliver the product they're ordering in the condition they expect? That is essentially the foundation for everything I'm going to teach you in this video. And trust cannot be understated. This is a very, very powerful driver of sales. So before we get into the ones you can copy, I'm going to give you a framework on exactly how to write your own. But before we do that, I got to get this out of the way. My name is Peter Valley. I've been selling Amazon for over 15 years at this point. I'm a super uncool web guy to the website FBAmastery.com. And I personally relied on boring condition descriptions for a long time. And God knows how much money that's cost. So I got to mention again, you can build a whole business off of what I give away for free, and that happens in 2 parts. Number 1, FBAmastery.com. There's a link below this video. You can get all the free stuff you see here, probably a bunch of new stuff by the time you watch this. It's crazy what I give away for free, FBAmastery.com. Then also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now here's the deal, you guys. If you don't subscribe to the YouTube channel right now, there's a button below this video. Just click it. That's all you have to do. If you don't do that, I'm going to come to your house when you're out, and I'm going to rearrange all of your furniture, which will be very, very annoying for you. So I would suggest you just subscribe and avoid this inconvenience. And lastly, I have a much more in-depth version of this video in article form at FBAmastery.com. YouTube punishes really long videos, so I have to keep this to like under 20 minutes. So I'm able to go into a lot more in-depth in the article version. I give you condition notes for CDs, VHS tapes, a bunch of stuff that's not in this video. So click the link below this video to check that out. Okay, as I promised, the formula for writing your own condition descriptions. So here it is. You want to write this down. Okay, so every condition description should incorporate these 4 things. Number 1, emphasize the item was individually inspected. This is the number 1 way that you can impart trust on your customer. the number one thing that's going to cause them to buy from you versus your competitor, assuming all other things being equal, is who do they trust more. And the number one way to impart trust is to emphasize and make it clear that you personally inspected the item being sold. Almost nobody else does this, especially mega sellers who form the bulk of your competition. Okay, that's number one, far and away the most important thing. Number two, put all the important stuff, meaning the trust building stuff, and I'll give you examples here in a second, put all of that in the first 105 characters. That's not a random number. Here's why I'm saying 105. Look at what's on the screen right here. Look at this example of just an average condition description. What do you notice? It cuts off at a certain point. It cuts off after 105 characters. So you need to get all the important stuff in the first 105 characters. If your customer wants to read more, they've got to click the word more. How many people do you think actually do that? Probably not very many. So you want to get the important stuff out of the way in the first 105 characters. Don't bury it at the end. Number three element to include in your condition description, put everything else after. And I'll get to what these other things are, but put the less important stuff at the end. And number four, what I call trust overkill. Anything you can do in addition to conveying that you individually inspected that item. Anything else you can do to build trust, also cram that in wherever you can. Okay, and I'll get into examples here in a second. But that's the 4-part list. If you want to write your own, that is the checklist. Now, I know you came here just to have condition description notes. You can just copy and paste. I get it. I'm going to give you that in a second. But I think it's really important to understand the psychology behind these. These aren't just random. I didn't just write these just to whatever sounded cool. There's actually principles behind this. And every condition description note, in my opinion, should have a mission behind it. It should be a 3-part mission. Mission number 1 is to instill trust, as I said. Mission number 2 is to defeat objections. Your customers have objections. They don't just come in guns blazing, ready to buy from anyone who's selling to them. A lot of them are skeptical. A lot of them have been burned by third-party sellers. So those people have objections, and you can defeat those objections in your condition description. And then lastly, you want to do both of those things in the first 10 words, aka 105 characters. So what are these buyer objections I refer to? Okay, so very simple. Number 1, are they getting an item in the condition that they expect, in the condition that was described? Again, a lot of buyers have been burned, so you want to convey to them, yes, you've inspected this item, you're going to get it in the condition that you expect. Number 2, are they actually getting the item they paid for? A lot of times, third-party sellers ship the wrong item. A lot of buyers have been burned with that. So that's an objection that buyers have. Number 3, delivery time, and number 4, returns. The last two are only going to be issues for merchant fulfilled sellers. If you're an FBA seller, you've already covered those bases. People understand that Amazon offers hassle-free returns, and shipping time is going to be in 2 days for prime eligible offers. So if you're an FBA seller, good news. You can ignore these second two because they come built in. If you're a merchant fulfilled seller, you also want to pack in your condition description the last two, emphasizing delivery time will be prompt and that you offer hassle-free returns. Okay, here's what you came for. Actual notes you can copy for your business. We're going to start with acceptable condition and work our way to like new. You ready? Let's get into it. So acceptable condition obviously is the worst condition on Amazon. Books in acceptable condition usually have specific blemishes that keep them from being good or very good, okay? And these condition blemishes should be noted specifically. This is the key detail here. You don't want to just say may contain writing or highlighting or all the other generic descriptions that other sellers use. You want to pinpoint the exact condition blemish that causes it to not be good or very good condition. Mention it specifically. This puts you way ahead of virtually every other seller. Okay, as I go through these examples, the important thing here is that you don't have to copy and paste these exactly. You can mix and match different elements. So what I did basically is create a wide array of different examples, and you can kind of piece together in a sort of a Frankenstein fashion elements from each one and put them together to form your own. Okay, so you don't have to copy these exactly. So let's get into it. Example number 1. Heavy reading wear, but still intact and 100% readable. No writing or highlighting. So what you're doing here is you're conveying, okay, what's the blemish? Heavy reading wear. It's not exactly too specific. It could probably stand to be more specific here. And the second key detail that is not included on the slide is that you should convey that the damage does not interrupt or in any way interfere with the functionality of the book. Very, very important. So in other words, buyers are very concerned. They're sitting back like, all right, this book's damaged, it's unacceptable. They understand what they're signing up for, but they need to know, is this actually going to impede my ability to read the book? Is the book falling apart? Or is any text obscured? So you want to address that as well. So the formula for acceptable condition is identify the exact damage, number 1. Number 2, communicate that it does not interfere with the functionality of the book. Both of these are very important. Which brings us to example number 1. Here is a note you can copy and use. Heavy reading wear, but still intact and 100% readable. No writing or highlighting. Now, I think this condition note could actually stand to be a little more specific in terms of the damage, but you'll notice I also conveyed here that it's intact and 100% readable. So again, the damage does not interfere with the actual functionality of the book. Very, very important detail. Next one, heavily loved. I like using this line. It just conveys that you're a real person. You're not just some stiff corporate business, right? Heavily loved, still intact, and perfectly readable. Cosmetic wear only on the cover and spine. Obviously, you would adjust this, be specific to whatever the damage is in the book that you're selling. But yeah, I like that term heavily loved. Again, sets you apart, makes you more personable. Next up, heavy wear to cover, great on the inside, and doesn't affect reading. Again, we're checking those boxes, right? What's the blemish? Heavy wear to cover. Okay, cool. Does it affect the readability of the book? Not at all. It says great on the inside and doesn't affect reading. And again, I've used all of these at different points, and sometimes I just change them based on my mood. So it's not like any one of these are any better than the other. I think they all pretty much equally useful. Okay, next up, pen marks on approximately blank pages only. Doesn't obscure text. So when you have a book that has underlining or pen writing, I always like to communicate, or highlighting for that matter, I always like to communicate roughly the number of pages that are highlighted or have writing on them. This conveys that you've individually inspected the book. So you don't have to be exact, right? Like you might say, okay, there's, writing or highlighting on like the first 36 pages, and maybe you didn't thumb through every single page. You might not be exactly accurate, but at least it communicates to the customer not the entire book is highlighted or has writing on it, and that you've actually inspected the book. So again, you could swap out the word pen mark for highlighting. Works just the same, right? But the key detail here is you mentioned the approximate number of pages. And if you know the exact number of pages, even better. I personally don't, even though I individually expect everything, I don't like to thumb through every single page of an entire textbook, right? Okay, another example, again, really specific with what the damage is. Great interior with blank inch tear to cover, doesn't affect reading. So this is an example for a book. You have a really, some heavy damage to the cover in the form of a big tear. Like a small tear would be, that would only keep it in like good or very good, probably good condition. But a big tear, probably want to sell as acceptable. So I'll just mention, hey, this is like, it's a tear, but it's not like a 6-inch tear. It's like a 1-inch tear, right? Shows the customer you're being specific. You individually inspected the item. Good condition except for blank. I like this one a lot. In other words, you're basically saying, hey, this would be good condition, except here's the specific blemish that keeps it from being good. This is about as concise and as good of a condition description as you can get for acceptable condition. And then you go on to say, perfectly readable, usable copy. This is probably my favorite of these because again, it covers the bases in the fewest words possible. And I capitalized except there intentionally because you want to draw attention to that. You want to make sure they see, hey, there's an exception to this. And then of course you mentioned the specific blemish exactly. Example number 7, you are getting a perfectly readable book with heavy cosmetic wear and nothing more to the cover. The reason I kind of like this is you're saying, hey, the wear is cosmetic. It doesn't actually, again, interfere with the readability of the book. It's not anything more than cosmetic. It just merely affects how the book looks. Example number 8, interior is perfect. Cover has heavy love. There's that word love again that I like. Heavy love in the form of reading wear increases. Just conveying to the buyer, hey, I individually inspected it. Here's the damage. Okay, that's acceptable condition. That's honestly the hardest one. So it actually just gets a lot easier from here because you notice with acceptable condition, as I said, you have to highlight what the damage is. With good condition and very good condition, the burden is reduced. Because there's not often a specific blemishes to highlight. Like a good condition book can just have heavy wear. It doesn't have to be like a specific thing you can point to. So let's get into what I mean by this. Okay, so example number 1, individually inspected, average reading wear, good condition, intact book with light amount of love. This might be my favorite of all the examples I'm going to give you. So again, you're highlighting individual. I'm sounding like a broken record here, so forgive me, but individually expected, check that box. What is the actual blemish? Well, average reading wear. I like the word reading wear or the words reading wear or shelving wear. It just communicates that it's not like it got ran over by a bus. It's just the kind of wear it would normally be incurred if you shelved the book multiple times or, read it in a slightly aggressive manner. And you go on to say good condition and the book is intact. And the word love again, which I think maybe only I think that sounds cool, but I think it helps. Good conditioning book example number 2, a good condition book with average reading wear. There's that term again, reading wear. Confirmed to look good and reads even better. Again, a little bit of personality. You don't really have to do a whole lot with good or very good condition, right? You just need to convey that, hey, it doesn't have any major blemishes. That's basically the only hurdle you're trying to clear. Example number 3, average shelving wear, some wear to cover, but overall great shape. This could stand to be a little more specific, but you get the idea. Example number 4, cosmetic wear to cover doesn't affect reading in overall good condition, individually inspected. You get the idea now. I probably don't have to explain why I'm saying the things I'm saying at this point. Okay, good condition book example. Number 5, small folds and average wear to cover, good condition with average amount of love from previous owner. I like that one too. Example number 6, good condition book, inspection found no major damage and only average reading wear, great copy. So I kind of like that term inspection found. In other words, like you've got this like crack team of book inspectors that have opened an investigation and closed the investigation and found no major damage, right? It kind of sounds like you put a ton of work in it when probably you just thumbed through it for 10 seconds like I do, right? Okay, so I like this one a lot too. Example number 7, inspected and found cosmetic wear to edges of cover, but overall good condition and great readable copy. Again, checks every important box. Okay, now we're getting a very good condition. A very good it's pretty easy. Very good is just like a slightly above average use book. In other words, it has a minimal amount of wear. So there's not really much you have to convey here other than just communicating, hey, like you're going to get what you're expecting, which is a minimally damaged book. And damage is actually too strong of a word. A book with light wear. So very good condition book example number 1, individually inspected, light reading wear, very good condition, intact book with light amount of love. So you notice what I'm doing here is I'm basically taking all the good condition description notes and I'm tweaking them slightly to indicate that this book is even less damaged, even has less wear to it than the good condition. So I'm going to go through these really fast because I basically just take the same condition notes with good condition and tweak them slightly. That's all I'm doing here. So all of these are going to sound familiar. So I'm just going to thumb through them because there's no point in reading them. You can see the changes I'm making are very slight. Very good condition book with light reading wear. Instead of saying like average reading wear, I'm saying light reading wear, right? These are the small tweaks I'm making. Again, I'm using the word light again. Light shelving wear, slight wear to cover versus average wear to cover. This one says minor instead of, the word average tends to be what I use with good condition. So with very good, I'd say minor cosmetic imperfections. Overall, extremely good condition, individually expected. Example number 5, small fold to cover. Get really specific. Very good condition, only light amount of love from previous owner. I like the word previous owner because it's factually correct, but it kind of leaves the impression that maybe there was only one previous owner when ultimately we usually can't, unless it's a book from your own collection, usually can't verify how many owners have how many hands the book has passed through, right? So you're not exactly lying. It's not really deceptive, but it's just like, hey, the previous owner didn't do much damage. Okay. Example number 6, very good condition book. Inspection found no blemishes worth mentioning. I kind of like this. No blemishes worth mentioning, only light reading wear. So in other words, you're saying, hey, there's no actual specific damage to this book. It's just clearly used, but that's the most we can say. It's the worst thing we can say about it. Example number 7, inspected and only slight cosmetic wear to edges and cover, etc., etc. You see, I just tweaked it there. Okay, so like new condition. Now we come full circle, you guys. We started out with acceptable, which is probably the hardest, where you have to mention the specific damage. Then we evolved to good and very good, where there's not really usually any specific damage to mention. So we kind of just had to keep things a little bit vague. Now we come back to like new condition, you have to mention the specific damage that keeps it from being a new condition book. Do you see the distinction here between this and very good and good? Now we have to go back to you are obligated. The buyer has their guard up. It's like, why is it like new? Why isn't it just new? You have to mention the specific blemish. Now, here's the thing. If there is more than one blemish to communicate, it is not a like new condition book 100% of the time. Okay. So if you've got a book and you're like, well, I don't just have a single blemish, then you don't have a like new condition book. You've got a very good condition book or worse. So like new only applies to books that are in brand new condition except for a single blemish. Very, very important detail, okay? So let's get into some examples. Like new condition book example number 1, a new condition book with small pen mark to foredge, otherwise flawless new copy. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm identifying the specific blemish, and then I'm also mentioning if it wasn't for this blemish, it would be new condition. Very, very important. Example number 2, new condition copy with price written on first page. This is another example of a blemish that would keep a book out of new condition, but still keep it safely in the category of like new. You ever seen this where, you got a book, it's cosmetically flawless, but it's got like the price written on the page or something. So you see what I'm doing there. Example number 3, fold to title page, otherwise brand new unread copy. I'm mentioning the blemish. I'm also mentioning, hey, this would be a new condition book if it wasn't for this blemish. So only 3 examples here because the formula is basically the same no matter what the blemish is. Now you guys remember, okay, so that covers all the conditions, but we got some more important stuff here coming. So you guys remember at the beginning I said, hey, the 4th sort of box you want to check is what I call trust overload, where you want to cram in even more trust building text in your condition description. I didn't say what that text is, so I'm going to give that to you now. We're going to do that in the form of appealing to the emotions of your customer. I know that sounds kind of weird, but here's what I mean by this. So far, all these condition description notes have only appealed to the logic part of the brain. Now, what I'm about to teach you here is not tested. It's not tested in any scientific way. It's not backed up by any studies. It's literally just based on my understanding that buyers, there's 2 kinds of buyers. There's buyers that make decisions based on emotion and buyers that make decisions based on logic. Okay, and sometimes we can make decisions at different times of the day or depending on our mood or whatever, right? So it's not necessarily 2 different types of people, but the point is people will make decisions based on one or the other. Sometimes they need both. So we want to appeal to the emotional side of the brain too, whereas previously up to this point, we've only appealed to logic. So when I have extra room, and I almost always do, I like to include these sentences at the end of my condition description note. So lines like support small sellers, like, hey, we're a small family-run business, packed and shipped with love. These convey personality. They convey you're an individual, not some big conglomerate. And they basically just ingratiate you to your customer, okay? So again, I don't think these move the needle that much, but you always got extra room. They can't hurt. Now let's talk about your competitors. Let's talk about your competitors and how they do condition description notes totally wrong almost all the time, and how these give you a big advantage over the vast majority of your competitors. So you really have 2 major competitors, right? You've got the big mega sellers, right? We all I think most people watching this probably don't like mega sellers. And number 2, you've got Amazon itself. These are your 2 major competitors, okay? So how does having a fantastic condition description, how does what I've taught you so far actually give you an advantage over mega sellers? The reason is this: mega sellers, 100% of them cannot individually inspect every single book. They can't. They're doing such high volume, it's just literally impossible. So they can't give specifically catered written condition description notes for every single item. It's impossible for them. So all they can do is just use copy and paste templates and include sentences like may include writing or highlighting, or may include this or that. Just one, catch-all condition description notes that apply to every possible book. That's what they do. And it comes across as really spammy, really weird. It certainly does not impart any trust in the customer. Generally, the condition description notes of mega sellers are terrible. They basically just do everything wrong. You got a customer and you got a mega seller, and let's say your price is the same, your condition's the same, but they see your condition description note is actually really impressive. It indicates you individually inspected the book, whereas no mega seller's doing that. Instantly gives you an edge over your mega seller competition 100% of the time. And we can't really know how much this moves a needle, how much this converts to sales. It might be 1 out of 10 buyers. This makes the difference between choosing you or a competitor. It might be 1 out of 2. It might be 1 out of 100. It doesn't even matter, because all that matters is these small tweaks add up to big amounts of revenue at the end of the month or the year for everybody, no matter how small you are. Now let's move to Amazon. How does having a fantastic condition description, how does that give you an advantage over Amazon itself? So a lot of Amazon customers, they buy from Amazon directly. In other words, they buy a new copy of a book simply because they don't trust third-party sellers. They don't like their options. They're looking at these condition description notes and they're like, yeah, I don't know. None of these make me convinced I'm actually going to get what I'm paying for. I don't trust these. So a lot of times people will pay a little bit extra just to buy a brand new copy from Amazon because they know it's not going to have writing. They know it's not going to have highlighting. They know it's not going to be damaged. They know all the things they need to know, and they're willing to pay a couple extra bucks for that trust, right? So there is a segment, it's probably a small segment to be fair, but there's a segment of the Amazon buying population that can be won over from buying from Amazon with a good condition description note, okay? So this gives you an advantage over Amazon in terms of, you already have the advantage in terms of price. I'm assuming you're pricing below Amazon. And so now you've got a condition description note that makes the customer trust you, hopefully, maybe almost as much as they trust Amazon. And that could possibly convert to an extra sale. So you guys, we covered a lot of ground. The big takeaway here is condition notes do matter. And now I've given you the science behind writing a good one. So you now have a 4-part mission. Are you ready? Mission number 1, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the link, subscribe right now. I will rearrange your furniture if you do not do it. Mission number 2, head over to FBAmastery.com. Get all the free stuff you see here. Get on the email list. Mission number 3, if you're an Amazon seller, you need to be repricing your inventory. It's mandatory. It's more important than your condition description. So if you're paying attention to this, but you're not repricing, or you're using a substandard automated repricer, NeuroPrice is the best automated repricing tool out there. NeuroPrice.io, 14-day free trial. Mission number 4, take what you learned in this video and actually put it into practice. Actually use the material we just learned together. Our time together has been wasted if you don't take this and make money with it. That's it, you guys. Peter Valley signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.